undergraduate environmental educators that went to Adams Elementary and taught school children about the importance of native plants and environmental stewardship. And I just wanted to say it's been a wonderful experience partaking in this. I watched them teach in the classroom over the last 2 months, and every time they would walk in the classroom with their arms full of live plants and art materials, I could see the children's eyes light up with excitement. And they really brought in a positive energy and a creativity that was a pleasure to see. And overall, I'm just very honored to be part of this program that brings different generations together to increase learning and creativity in schools. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to my team.
So I think we're going to try and not use the mic. Can everyone hear us all right?
Yeah.
Awesome. So as Kelly said, our team went into Adams Elementary School and taught 1st through 5th grade about native plants. We talked about how people use plants and the relationship we have with our native plants and our native place. And we're going to talk a lot more about that. But before we get going, I just want to take a moment to acknowledge our whole team. My name is Elise. This is Carson. We're going to be up here talking, but there were 11 of us, plus Kelly and Katie, as parts of our team. So we're just going to take a moment to acknowledge them. And teaching 1st grade was myself and my partner, Daniel Sapiro. Teaching 2nd grade was Sierra Predovich and Natalie Brocky. 3rd grade was Kelsey Miller and Beth Sanner. And in 4th grade, we had Stephanie Laredo and Ryan Bax. And then in 5th grade, we had Carson, Chandler Wary, and Mike Straw. So they are a part of this lovely film up here. So,
There we go.
Cool. So as we've been saying, I'm going to move over here. We worked at Adams Elementary School. They're a perfect partner for us. They're a school of 390 students over in the friendly neighborhood. And they already have a really strong commitment to environmentalism, so our partnership with them made total sense. They say it all in their mission. We have a commitment to learning about and respecting a diverse, interconnected, and sustainable world. They're in Oregon. They're recognized as a merit-level Oregon Green School. So us coming into that community made perfect sense, and Carson's going to talk a lot more about that.
So our involvement in Adams this year actually came out of a need that they expressed for an upgrade in their campus. They had noticed that they didn't have a strong presence in native plants, and they contacted us about that. And we actually expanded on that and decided, why don't we move forward with a lesson on plants and people, ethnobotany, at the school to help kids connect to the local environment and then also motivate them to act and be more active in the Willamette Valley. So we chose to do this by teaching grades 1 through 5, and we had a total of 15 plants we wanted to teach about. And to allow us to dive into them with the most detail that we could and really get the kids involved, we chose to teach 3 lessons per grade and 3 plants per grade. So 5th grade, for example, taught about yarrow, osoberry, and Pacific ninebark, so that we could really build those kids' observational skills, plant identification skills, but also help them to learn in a really involved way about how these plants can be used in everyday life and how that's still applicable. Additionally, Adams has a really over-the-top, really big, really great Earth Day celebration every year, and we got to be involved before we started our lessons, and this gave us an opportunity both to get the kids pumped about our lessons and also introduce ourselves and sort of introduce environmental ed and the methods that we'd be using.
Sweet. So, as we said, we installed a native plants garden at the school to facilitate our curriculum process. There's a couple pictures of it here. We spent 2 days last winter tearing out some other landscaping and putting in all natives. We put in over 15 species, and we really focused on making this more than just a garden space that everyone would see, but rather a hands-on learning space for our students. So we planned our lessons around this space, and we incorporate it in our lessons as a place to take our students outside to get them using all their senses to really engage in the plants that we're teaching them about. Additionally, we didn't want our program to be something where kids participated in it once and was like, yeah, that was a cool thing we did, kind of forgot about it. And this garden really helped us to help our students remember. So every day they come to and from school and they see this in the front, and they see that what we're teaching them is applicable. It's in their lives every single day, and the garden's a really great tool for doing that. It's also a long-term resource for our teachers. In our lesson plans, we require lots of materials and fun things for the kids to do, and this garden provides a space for our teachers to go out and gather that material so they can continue to do them after we're gone.
So before we talk about the content and some of the things we did with the kids, I also want to emphasize how we were teaching to them for two reasons. The first reason being, if you have good content but you teach it in an ineffective way, then nobody's going to learn anything. The second reason being, our team, and I think environmental education in general, is as much about teaching content as it is about fostering a sense of belonging in a place, responsibility, and stewardship, so that our methods were really a way for us to drive that home to students. So the first method that we really tried to bring into our curriculum was building awareness to action. And that means for our students, we tried to first cultivate a sense of them knowing the plants around them, knowing what the Willamette Valley was, and then from there build motivation and confidence for them to be able to act and interact with their local environment. The second thing we really wanted to bring into our lessons was hands-on experiential learning. So we wanted to focus a lot more on doing things than like reading or lecturing, so that students could make personal connections to what they were learning, and so that they could bring that home and teach other people in a really real and applied way. The third method that we focused on was inquiry. We wanted to get away from memorization and sort of downloading information onto students and move towards asking questions so that they could explore issues in a way that maybe didn't have one single answer, but led them to explore their surroundings and explore the issues we presented in a more complex and nuanced manner.
So, as we said at the very beginning, there were 2 facilitators for every grade level. I taught first grade and I was in every single classroom 3 times. It was a wonderful experience. But more than that, our facilitators developed our curriculum from the concepts that we taught all the way through the lesson plan document that we produced for our school. So as a team, we decided how exactly we were going to do that, and we intentionally had united concepts that our lessons build on each other over time, so that when our lessons continue on past this year, students don't learn the same information every year. After the 5 grades, they'll have learned 15 plants, and they'll develop a really complex understanding of what it means to be a citizen of this valley. And that gets more complex over time, as opposed to just repeating the same material, but more for our grade level. So we're just going to go and show you a little bit of what we taught at each grade. So as I said, I taught first grade. And we start off our program by doing some storytelling and really using that creative outlet to introduce our students to the plants and the idea of how people use plants at all. We use that story as a framework for our teaching, and it introduces how we're going to use all of our plants, which were curly cup gumweed, wood strawberry, and showy milkweed. So on the second day, we became a gumweed plant. You can see this photo, Dan outside leading some students to use their bodies to actually make a plant, and using that to talk about what is it that a plant needs to grow, and what makes a plant healthy enough for people to actually use it, and establishing that relationship. On our third day, we went out into an extension of our native plants garden, and we actually planted with our students. So every single first grader got an opportunity to get their hands dirty and put some plants in the ground, and this was really our action component of our lesson. Furthermore, we tasked our students with more than just planting, but gave them the action orientation of, it's your job to take care of this space for the rest of the time you're here, and took that action beyond just our time in the classroom and really made sure that what we're teaching stuck.
So second grade, Sierra and Natalie's class, they also sort of moved from building awareness in students to taking action and being involved. So they started with journaling activities to build student awareness of the plants and also get students thinking and engaged the first day, sort of reflective, and move into the second day, which was one of my favorite activities. I'm sort of jealous I didn't think of it. They had this Become a Scientist day where students would collect data, make observations of the 3 plants they were teaching, record that, and that really helped the students to build observation skills, but also science can be intimidating, so it's a way to break that down and allow students to be involved in that. and then also to make identification of their 3 plants really memorable so they can remember, oh yeah, I measured that. I remember huckleberry leaves because I spent a whole afternoon measuring them with a ruler and noticing the intricacies of that. And then they ended off the lesson, they ended the 3 days with a creative activity. So students were then taking action to express themselves by making fern prints using sword fern. And that really allows students to see, this is how I can use native plants on a day-to-day basis to express myself, not just to memorize, oh, I know all these facts about these plants.
3rd grade really continued the trend of spending your first day talking about what these plants look like. They did that by taking the children outside and doing a garden walk through our native plants garden. On the 2nd day, they went a lot deeper and made willow baskets, burden baskets with their students. This is a really challenging experience for a lot of these kids, and it was really hands-on. And that makes it both memorable and a skill-building experience for them. It isn't something where they say, what is this basket that I have on my shelf at home? This is a memory, and we really wanted our program to be a memory for them. On the 3rd day of 3rd grade, they delved into questioning what's native, what's non-native plants, and talking about what it means, what a native habitat looks like in this valley, and getting an idea of what it means to live in this place. 4th grade was creative with their teaching about identification skills and used a really fun puppet show to wrap up their first lesson, and then went on to some skill building. They made cordage, or it's a sort of rope, out of cattail, which is a common plant in the valley. And then on their 3rd day, the 4th grade students had the privilege of making a canvas earth oven, in which they carried on the traditional way of making a canvas oven. And the 4th grade teachers, Stephanie and Ryan, used this to talk about stewardship and conservation, especially in the context of land management here in the valley.
So my grade, and Chandler and Mike's grade, sorry, not grade, my grade. We really wanted to, like 4th grade, build a more complex understanding of the sense of place. And a big part of that is exploring how people have used plants here through time. So we started our first day by exploring a traditional Kalapuya, the indigenous people here, seasonal round, seeing what plants people traditionally use at different times of year, how people use them, and how that affected how they were living on the landscape. And then asking students to apply this to their own life, how they depend on plants at different times of year and how that alters their life, whether it be something as drastic as what you get to eat, or just when it's good to go out to a lake, or when it's not, etc. So in our 2nd day then, we wanted to move things into the here and now and sort of say, how do you interact with plants now? How do we interact with plants every day in our world, in our surroundings? And one way that I'm sure everybody or most people in the audience are familiar with is botanical terms and botany. Plants, that's a really common way for us to learn about plants and exchange information. So we wanted to give students the intro to that language of botany so that it wasn't so intimidating to them, and so that if they were more interested in learning about more native plants, they would be able to pick up a field guide with their parents and not be, oh, what ovate leaves, I give up, and just throw the book down. Then in the 3rd day, we thought we would move towards something more active, more hands-on, and more applied, so that we could show students how these plants were used and guide them in using the plants in the same ways. So our 3 plants, yarrow is a medicinal plant. So we actually made a poultice with the students. Yarrow can stop, it has a ton of uses, one of which is to stop bleeding. And so we told them all about that, and that was actually 5th grade boys are really eager to actually stop bleeding. So caution anybody from just jumping into that. Make sure there's nothing sharper. Teaching moment, learning moment for me. And the other stations were Mike is a tie-dye extraordinaire. So taught the students how to, demonstrated how to make a natural dye using oso berries. And then lastly, Chandler was able to show how Pacific 9 bark has been a versatile tool in use in the native Northwest for a long time because of its strength and flexibility. So we didn't want to make anything sharp like a digging stick or an awl, because obviously that would have compounded with the yard of So we made paintbrushes to demonstrate that and to actually help students learn how to use these plants.
So I'm just going to run through some of the amazing results we had out of this program. We spent over 2,600 hours working on this project for the last 22 weeks or so. We spent 106 of those hours teaching in the classroom. We developed 20 hours of lesson plan curriculums for atoms that were localized to their place, and we put in a garden along with lots of other great stuff.
Yeah. And, we're running short on time. I really want to thank some people, so we had better move ahead to that. We wanted to thank Robert and Catherine Miller Foundation, the Gray Family Fund, and Steve Ellis for their generous support, as well as Adams Elementary teachers, and especially the principal, Cindy Saints, for they've been more than generous in sharing their time and helping us just to become better environmental educators. Katie Lynch, who has worked tirelessly for us. Devin Bonady, a master's student with the most knowledge of plants I have ever seen, who's taken lots of time for us. Kelly Sky, who sat through all our meetings and edited everything for us, as well as the nurseries who generously donated plants that made the Native Plants Garden and all the curriculum possible.